Good evening from Dehradun, India. I'm Ishan Khosla, Associate Professor at UPS University. I'll be talking about body language, transforming the indelible tattoos and motifs of indigenous folk and tribal artists into digital typefaces. Launched in 2012, the Typecraft Initiative develops a range of digital fonts both in the Latin and Indic scripts from South Asian vernacular crafts and tribal arts as a means to generate livelihood, but also to break down barriers set up by colonial structures that divide craft and design. And basically, what we're trying to do is to get both designers, craftspeople, and students to work together in one forum. So, simply put, Typecraft is about making typefaces from crafts. The initiative helps to promote and innovate um, the intangible cultural heritage of India and beyond. This is an exhibition at Atelier Muji, Ginza, held in 2020, showcasing a wide variety of our projects. The typeface is also meant to create awareness and generate further interest in the art, history, context, and the life of the people, as well as the communities we work with. It is also unprecedented that a vernacular craft or tribal art has been made into a typeface. As far as we know, this has not been done before. And so Typecraft allows the craft to be used on a range of applications for the first time. For instance, the creation of signage, websites, book covers, artworks, and more. Um, so it's important to understand that this is a typeface and not lettering. So that means you can actually use it in your application and type anything just like you would with any other font. So each typeface is made from a craft or tribal art that belongs to a specific region, has a certain material culture associated with it, a certain process, as well as context. So far, Typecraft has worked with Chitara floor and wall art from Karnataka, Godna tattoos from Chhattisgarh, Mithila art from Bihar, numerous embroideries from Kutch in the western part of India, as well as Barmer in the Rajasthan, like Barmer applique and patchwork. And we've also created logos and identities from various crafts from Northeast and the South. Godna tattoo art is made was one of the first typefaces that we made, and it comes from Chhattisgarh, which is in central India. So traditionally, Gond artists would sustain their livelihoods by etching basically tattoos onto various other tribal communities like Bhil and Bega tribes. Many folk arts and crafts of India are in decline for various reasons. In the case of Godna, I visited some of the villages a few years back, and I only see older women with the tattoos on them. The younger women have stopped continuing the practice. And as of today, the art form in its traditional avatar is pretty much dead, as migrating to cities. They don't want to be, they don't want to be covered with tattoos when they're working in a job, etc. So that whole process of marking for identification and other ritualistic aspects is seen as not valid in an urban context. So the Godharan women, the women who make the tattoos, now use their skills to make saris such as this and other clothing. Um, and so the idea behind Typecraft was to create a space of collaboration between folk and tribal artists, craftspeople, designers, and students, but also maybe in a small way offer livelihood to these marginalized communities, especially ones that are suffering from these various global forces and changes in economy. So we worked with Sunita, Ramkeli, and Sumitra from the Jamgala village in Chhattisgarh to make this typeface. We first wanted to understand how do you create the tattoo. So you actually make a paste from soot, which is collected from a kerosene flame, and then there's this cluster of needles that they use to then not only draw the design, but they also etch, constantly make these etching marks into the arm or the part of the body where the tattoo has to be made. And then finally, an antiseptic in the form of haldi or turmeric paste is applied. Puja or a prayer is also done to kind of ward off evil spirits. There are also various rites of passages or passage associated with the tattoos, and basically they are applied to various parts of the body, different periods of time to mark a girl entering puberty, uh, getting married or having childbirth, etc. Since these women are coming from a very remote area, we didn't ask them to draw letters straight away. Instead, we began our exchange by asking them to draw the various tattoo designs and explain their meaning to us. So each of these motifs have a symbolism dating back thousands of years. And also, what is important to do this is because we don't want this to be a top down relationship. We want to also learn from their experiences and their knowledge systems before we get into the type design aspect. So that's a really important way to work in a collaborative way rather than the designer telling you what to do. So we want to always create this space of free experimentation and sharing of ideas. So initially, no instruction was given to them, and they were free to create the letter forms as they chose with the motifs that they already know very well. And these are some of the results of that. Some more results. Of course, these are not very reusable as a font because there are certain irregularities and inconsistencies. But already here we see the DNA of the typeface emerging. For instance, you see these motifs in the counters of the letter forms, which we then used consequently as well because we liked how they came up with this idea and how they're repeating certain patterns and designs on the stem and the form of the letter forms. The next stage was then using constraints such as certain proportions and heights to work with. Three women working on the letters with these constraints, but keeping the DNA that they themselves developed in mind. This was a whole process that took about 3 weeks, and in the end, because there were three women, we came up with three different letter forms. So when you buy the font or use the typeface, it's with open type. It allows you to choose a combination of any three when you type. So of course, a project like this will raise certain questions like, well, the ancient practice of tattooing is over. This in this region and in that manner, the project creates a living archive of the tattoo iconography as well as its use as a typeface. However, creating something unprecedented like a tattoo-based typeface certainly raises questions. So seen here is the placement of tattoos on various parts of the body and the relationship to the letters that have been created by the crafts, by the artists, by the tribal artists. I will not go through the entire presentation here, but just to give you a sense of where in the body the tattoos come from and where in the typeface, which is also called body copy sometimes, there is a connection to the body in the font as well, which has different terminologies like ear and the stem, etc., which are relating to the structure of a body, interestingly. But the question really is that the Godna tattoo in its digital avatar as a typeface is devoid of the original ritualistic and symbolic meaning and its function to mark rites of passage or as a marking device for a specific community. It is now transformed into a sort of a neutral communication device. By neutral, I mean something that anyone can use to communicate anything across the English-speaking world. So is this a good thing or not? And this is a provocation I would like to raise today. And of course, one of the most obvious advantages of the transformation is that we're helping to create a tool, a starting point that can be used by anyone. And here we have both Ram Keli and Sunita looking at the font for the first time after it's been made and developed and typing their names here. What was important is to create something that is, as I said, dynamic, changeable, not something static like these examples. We wanted to avoid what we call the desecration of craft, where it is just slapped on ad nauseum onto objects like teapots and cushion covers without any respect or understanding or sensitivity to the original meaning of the craft. There are various challenges. Uh, of course, this is a very unprecedented project in a sense, and I mean, without sounding arrogant, this is, I would say, the first time such a project has been done, making a typeface out of crafts. And so, but each of our project has have different challenges, sometimes very unexpected and unplanned, because of these situations, because of communities we've not worked with, because of contextual challenge, contextual differences, and diversity of people and their experiences. So, being out in the field for our workshops with limited resources and time, we have to act quickly. And there is no rule book in creating typefaces based on crafts. As I said, this is very unprecedented. There are many, there are many challenges that are unique to each project. And so, when you start a new project, there's no like cookie cutter approach that you can follow. So what may work with Godna tattoos may not work with, say, Rabadi embroidery or Chitara art. Uh, so, so we also face a whole host of challenges, such as difficulty of understanding the intricacies of the craft, and its limitations due to us uh, not being material designers. We work with graphics. So craftswomen face the challenge of not knowing design or typography as much. So that's some of the things that we face. There is the clash between how in India we view ornament versus how it is often viewed in the West. Ornament in the West is detested uh, due to its aristocratic associations of the 19th century bourgeoisie, who were then overthrown in violent revolution. And modernism developed out of this decision to kind of do away with this burden um, and the richness, intricacy of the ornate. And hence, the 20th century modernism and design um, is related to minimalism and less is more, with a desire to be sparse and and sorry, um, and it was a revolt against the archaic system. Hence, type design also has simplicity and minimalism embedded into it. Um, but India is not a less is more country, and just walk out anywhere and you'll see that it's full of information, noise, colors, smells, etc. And ornament has a very different role in India. It's associated with richness, beauty, intricacy, detailed workmanship. So whether tattoos, trucks, or bridal trousseaux, Indians have a strong sense of the ornate. Uh, and so if you look at type now, and typical type design is very simple. That you can see these blue dots. They're called nodes. Typically, there are about 10 to 30 nodes. Godna, there are about 5,000 nodes. So this adds a lot of complexity, which to work with. Large number of nodes also makes the files heavy. Sometimes they crash, which is what we faced initially when we were making this into a font. So there's a huge difference between lettering and a font, because in a font you have to make it something that you can use on any system anywhere around the world. There were a series of steps, and took us months to figure this out. This whole project is about a year and a half long from the beginning to the end. There were a lot of decisions we had to make, was whether we reduce the number of characters in the font or the number of nodes, but then that would change the design and the original form of the font, or to use components. That means to use similar forms in similar letters like the P and the B, but then that again destroys the handmade quality that we were after. So this was eventually solved by Andrew Balius, my colleague in Barcelona, who's a partner of Typecraft Initiative. So he disabled subroutines in the glyphs application, and that not only allowed us to generate the typeface, but also two more styles, as we discussed earlier, because there were three women that we worked with. And we also managed to create diacritics, special characters, etc. Like This is just a quick preview of the various styles of the typefaces. And we also created dingbats, which are the original tattoo icons. So I would like to say that Typecraft is very participatory in nature. We tend to work with many people together in a free manner with no fear of failure. We mainly work with women and marginalized communities to counter the paternalistic and anti-secular casteist forces in a very conservative country. The crafts people value our workshop, which inspires them to use design thinking in their work and offers them a safe space to feel and experiment. This is sadly a rare experience because our participants are usually given the design to work with rather than allowed to think. India still has a low rate of literacy, and emphasizing type design in rural areas is important because it gives value to letters and being literate. And we've seen a change happening in this with this. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions.